Now, many of us are nationalistic in our thought, and we don't like no religion. And they call religion the opiate of the people. And it has been a drug, not a drug that enlivens you, but a drug that puts you to sleep in ignorance. But do you know if we didn't have the black church, we would have been in bad, bad shape.
And there it is. Welcome, welcome. I am Dena, and you are tuned into another discussion with Dena. Once upon a time, our black preachers were beacons of light and served in a very vital role. That was and is for some an example of what and how best to live and build better lives here in this place we call America, and particularly in black society. In some cases, it may still be true today, but never to the degree that it was in black America's past. Now, today it can appear to be overwhelmed with all manner of scandal and impropriety, and not to mention those who choose to adhere to a completely alternative lifestyle that is contrary to what is being taught in the church and to the teachings, and even those who reconstruct and or reinterpret the words to make it more acceptable to modern society. In the past, unlike today, one would be hard pressed to find a black person, no matter what their status is in life, that did not belong to a church or some similar religious organization. At the least, you would be very hard pressed to find a person that did not attend some type of service, be it weekly, monthly, or perhaps annually. It was just a central part of the black life and the black community. Not so much today. There are many who continue to attend, but far less than it was in the past. And from some of the church interactions that I have seen posted on social media, child, I can understand why. But we know that black slaves were prevented from reading or writing. It was unlawful. So initially, church going or the Bible was given to us by Massa in an attempt for him to benefit from. It was to teach black slaves to be obedient servants and keep black enslaved people in check. It was a reminder to them to be good and obedient servants so that they, when they died, they could get their reward and go to heaven. And isn't that a trip? That they could get their reward, which was to be free, to have justice, and all the things that the white subjugators were denying them here on earth. Talk about being cunning and deceitful. In other words, you have to get yours when you die, black slaves, black people. But meanwhile, all of us white subjugators are going to use you to maintain and make life enjoyable for us so that we may maintain our heaven here and now on earth. So, the black slaves were not allowed to read or write, but the subjugators would recruit a slave to stand in front of other slaves and preach to them about being good servants to their white masters, as I said before. And one such person was Nat Turner. Nat Turner was trained and he was used by the white subjugators to go from plantation to plantation to speak with other black people, his brethren. And they used him for nefarious reasons. That to send or give preach their ideology and their interpretation of the Bible. However, because Nat Turner was one of the few who could actually read at that time, he read the Bible for himself. And he was able to get the full context and came into his own thinking, his own conclusion, and his own interpretation of what it is that he has read. Sometimes you need the full context to come to that. And he realized it was being used as a tool by the captors to encourage black men to be good, black men and women and children to be good servants to their malevolent white subjugators. Now, Nat Turner understood that the words did not necessarily represent what the slave master interpreted or intended it to be and what they were using it for, but that it represented possibility. It's always about context and one's own interpretation. Nat Turner saw through the falsehood and he responded as such. But the church was the only place the captors allowed the slaves to congregate because they felt it served their purpose mainly. And they always had this fear in the back of their minds that whenever they saw a group of black people gathered together, that they were somehow planning a revolt against them. Now, if you have committed horrific abuses, raped, terror, and tortured people, and you have bequeathed this upon a population, I think that trepidation is warranted. And the captive might even be seen as justified in doing so. So this coming together was often discouraged, and that is, of course, with the exception of what they call church, or the time to read the sermon in a church setting. In those meetings, you could always find a Caucasian present or in ear's length of the meeting so that they could hear what it was that our people were discussing. They were there to observe and make sure that black people were indeed adhering to the rules. You are slaves, you are to be obedient to your master. They want to make sure we were not plotting or planning against them. So the Bible and church was given and encouraged for their own selfish purpose. However, it became a reprieve. Black people found a short respite, a rest from the hard work and many back-breaking tasks that it took to build this country, because we did build America. And although its intent was for one purpose, it became a substantial part of black life. The church was a place of temporary solace. Like I said, you could lay your burdens down just for a moment. You could speak and sing and release some of your troubles, your aches and pains, all but went away for that moment. But unbeknownst to the subjugators, it was not just a place to praise, it was a place to unite regularly. Not just to gather, but also to plan for black liberation as well. A place many looked forward to for guidance, spiritual enlightenment, support, and most of all, recharging the mind, the body, and the soul in troubled times. Among other things, its message was used to help us to maintain and to endure hardships. Many of our black leaders derived from and maintained the support of those within the black church, and it really assisted when it came to the civil rights movement. So the black church has been proven to be useful and vital in the past for the upliftment of our people, from the time of slavery to the time now for the descendants of the slaves. Now the church, many look to plan, to pass on information, and to coordinate efforts to navigate through a most hateful, terrorizing, and all-encompassing anti-black racist society that we call the United States. And no matter how many administrations come and go, doesn't matter how many educational institutions try to rewrite, to leave out, or even disband what they call critical race theory, In an effort to gloss over America's terroristic history, it remains a truth. It's an actual and it is factual. No matter how, and that refers to this current administration as well, any previous or any future administrations that attempt to deny or eliminate the anti blackness that has occurred and does occur here in America, it will still be a fact of America's history. White people in America are oppressed. They are discriminated against and they purposely denied resources to black people simply because they have black skin. It's just a fact. It's undeniable and it continues today for some. Not all, I said for some. That anti black sentiment today is a lie. It's not racist to say this, it is not racist to teach this, and to both black and white youth to remind everyone that many still share this unremorseful, sometimes terroristic sentiment today in America toward black people. And the proof is also the lack of reparations. We have never received reparations for what was done to us, our people that we descended from. We have never received anything towards repairing us. And if hearing this causes you to feel bad or some kind of way, that's perfectly okay. You really should feel something. It shows you have a degree of empathy for what was done. If you feel nothing at all, or you feel no obligation to prevent or repair, then it's fair to conclude that the presence of covert yet surreptitious continuation of anti-blackness is in existence. And that's not hard to believe. Simply bring up the topic of repairing the people that were torn apart. You cannot have people in bondage that long and say, "You're okay. Now you can compete with me." No, you did not. So many things. You created so many unhealthy environments to the point that there's trauma within the DNA being passed down in behaviors. It's evident and it's undeniable. Lack of remorse for what has been done. So, as long as there is no reparation to the descendants of slaves, we can't say that, can't say make America great again until it's great for all of us who call ourselves Americans. It's not great at this point. It can be. But before we say make it great again, we have to right the wrongs that were done. And that begins with reparations. It is simply not enough to acknowledge without compensation and being held accountable. And being accountable is repairing what has been torn apart. Hearing this causes you to feel bad or you feel some kind of way about it. It's okay. Long after we're gone, there will always be those that will speak the truth of America's anti-black hatred, her racist, discriminatory, and terroristic history upon and against the black woman, the black man, and black children. It was legally enforced and instituted by the very same government that we live under today. It is plain and simply American history. But the black church was often used to refuel and navigate a most anti-black society. The church was that solace, and being around like-minded spiritual people gave us strength and motivation to endure. And you were encouraged just to follow God's words, keep his commandments, and keep your faith, and we will be okay. Over time, it seems church has morphed into something almost unrecognizable for some, these mega and It has become more of a springboard for more than just the civil rights movement. Politicians and special interests have used it to launch their own agendas as well, and even some, it has become more of a way to become rich. And you lead the flock, but where?
But I ain't afraid of the spooks that sat at the door. Been praying for me all week. You've been nervous all week. But I ain't afraid of the spooks that sat at the door. These runaway slaves hiding in the White House gonna throw my picture up thinking that I'm gonna be afraid. If you got real courage, don't show my picture. Show the picture of the one that fired the black Joint Chief of Staffs from the military. If you're going to show a picture of the CEO of Target, Walmart, McDonald's, and Amazon that does not recognize black dollars or black business. If you're going to put up a picture of the state legislators in Florida that are banning black books. If you're going to put up the picture of the one who is stealing classified information from the IRS and Social Security. If you gonna put up a picture of those that don't want your mama to pay $35 for insulin and your child to pay $35 for inhaler. If you gonna put up a picture of those that are jailing children and separating families. I ain't ever scared. In case you forgot, I'm from the west side of Baltimore. If you got a problem, pull up on me. Stokely Carmichael said, our fathers had to run, but my generation is out of breath. We ain't running no more. Yea, though I walk. And after being on the run for 26 years from Saul and Philistines, David said, my running days are over. We don't have to run anymore. You only run when you're scared. But you walk when you got confidence that greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. Would you look at your neighbor and tell him, I ain't running nowhere. Be like a tree, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding, knowing that your labor is not in vain. I'm not gonna run when nobody is chasing me, but I'm gonna walk like a smooth operator. I gotta walk because I understand that no weapon formed against me shall be able to prosper. All these other churches might not say nothing, but at 6400 Woodrow, we right outside of Decatur where it's greater. You got to understand that there is more for us than there are against us. Look at your neighbor and say, as long as we stick together, we ain't gotta run. Harriet Tubman said, whenever I tried to make our people be free, there were a few Negroes that tried to go backwards and tried to risk our freedom. I feel bad for them coons in the White House who are in there tap dancing for massa, wearing bow ties, shinning and grinding, laughing like nothing is funny. Get out of there, Negro, and stand with your people so that you understand that God is on our side.
Are we actually in a place where the only way you can be black and stand with your people is to be a Democrat? Now, if that's where we are, we're the dumbest people on the face of the planet, and we're the only people in America who operate that way. You can be white and be a Republican or a Democrat, Hispanic and be a Republican or a Democrat. Praise the Lord. whatever, and be a Republican or a Democrat. But if you're black, the only way you can be an authentic black person is to be a Democrat. That's stupid. And you know what it means? It means that explains why we spend half the time, or maybe even more, out of power. I've said for years, we need to operate politically, and I want to make this clear, in a way where both parties will compete for our vote. When one party knows that they're going to get your vote no matter what, you get nothing from that party. When another party knows that they're not going to get your vote no matter what, you get nothing from that party. So then you end up in no man's land. We are not married to the Democrat Party. People have a right to choose. And if you choose to be a Democrat, if you choose to be a Republican, if you choose to be independent, as I am, that doesn't make you more black nor less black. It means you're an American participating in the process. And God is on our side. Now, if we want to talk about whose side God is on, it's the Democrats who are pushing same-sex marriage. It's the Democrats who are pushing letting children get mutilated, little 8-year-old boys getting turned into girls. It's the Democrats who are 100% in their platform behind abortion and abortion rights up till the time of birth. If we start talking about whose side God is on, you got to dismiss most of the scripture to be a Democrat. Well, there are other things. What other things? What's more important than life? Trump ain't no good. Yeah, but he signed an executive order to protect Christians. He's no good, but the polls show that Christianity now has leveled off and is going back on the rise again since he's been in office. You just got to do your homework. Now you start talking about whose side God is on. No, the question not whose side God is on. The question is the question Moses asked. Who's on the Lord's side?
On Thursday night, I mentioned the first wolf, which is Reverend Al Sharpton. A wolf if there's never been a wolf before. Used to be a big wolf. Now he's a modernly slim wolf, but still a wolf. He's going around leading a buy-in at Costco. Gave 100 people $25 to go buy items at Costco. The same Reverend Al Sharpton who received $500,000 from the Kamala Harris campaign to give Kamala Harris a softball interview. And there's nothing wrong with being compensated for doing media. But there is a conflict of interest if you are doing an interview and you don't tell people that you're being paid to do the interview. He's a wolf. He's leading a buy-in at Costco because of the DEI conversation. There are lies saying now that blacks will no longer have protections under the law and they're getting rid of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. You can't do so unless you have support from the House, the Senate, and then the president. There are checks and balances that must be meted out. Amen, somebody. But what is going on, we're trying to rewire and reposition some of the mess that President Barack Obama got us in when he expanded the LBJ executive order that was drafted in 1965. He made it acceptable for transgenders and people who practice sexually deviant behaviors to receive not civil rights, but to be codified in an area where they have special rights. And so what we're doing now is trying to make sure that when you go to work, and if you're a business owner, you don't hire somebody who shows up Monday as a man, but by Friday he's a full-blown woman. And you got to sit there and watch that tranny mess up your business. And if you fire him, you'll be sued. That's what's going on. We're trying to make sure that books like this, a book entitled Worm Loves Worm, which teaches kids about same-sex marriage. We're trying to make sure that our kids don't get mentally raped and sodomized in their mind. But instead, too many black folk are on this campaign that we're losing our rights. We're not losing our rights. Matter of fact, we don't appreciate the rights that we do have. We have a right to be born, and we don't appreciate that right. That's why since 1973, 20 million of us are missing. And when you listen to the black preacher, both male and female, I would think that the black evangelists and the black missionary and the black prophetess who travels all around the country merchandising, I would think that those who merchandise the church would at least defend the honor and the sanctity of femininity, since they are a woman themselves. But during the past election, you couldn't pay a black female preacher to talk about the fact that children are being corrupted and destroyed in the room. I'm right. You couldn't pay them to do it.
Just the songs that I met in the church made me to know how valuable the black church is to our struggle. And some of the best preaching, I heard it in the AME church, I heard it in the Baptist church, and from the West Indies, my parents, we came from the Anglican experience. Well, you know, that didn't have no oomph in it. But when I teamed up with Reverend Jackson in 1983 to help him in his quest to be the nominee of the Democratic Party, Reverend Jackson introduced me to the black church. And I can tell you, as a young Christian, was nothing that moved me like a Baptist preacher. And I want to say that if we want this movement to survive, we got to take hold of the black church. We got to help it to survive, and we must be revivalists, a revival of that black church, because it is important to our future. Now you may say, well, I ain't for that, man. Them preachers ain't right. Yeah, they ain't been right, but they have some very good ones. And they have some preachers today. I met a bishop the other day who came to visit me. I won't call his name. And he said, Farrakhan, I knew him since he was 21 years of age. He's a big bishop. And he said, Farrakhan, I'm retiring. But what I want you to do is teach me what Elijah Muhammad taught you. that made you so successful in transforming the lives of those who hear the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. When I heard the brother say that, I said, come on, brother. And we sat together for 3 hours. And we went through the Bible, a little of the Quran, but my brother left on high, because what he wants to do now that he's retired as a bishop, he wants to take young preachers and teach them the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that activates those who believe in Jesus Christ. You believe in a good man, but you don't know him deep enough to become the revolutionary that he was. Jesus was a revolutionary. And you just can't be a preacher singing and shouting, and the revolutionary spirit is not in you to build a black nation. You got to be a revolutionary to just think about a black nation.
Isn't that interesting? Tell me, what do you think about this topic of discussion? Is the black church still a vital part of the black society in America, or has it outlived its importance? Subscribe and leave me your thoughts on this subject. I want to thank you for listening, and I want to invite you to join me next time for another discussion with Dena. Ta-ta!
This concludes your daily discussions with Dena. Join us Monday through Friday at 12:30 p.m. Like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment.